Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. We're joined by Graham and Dan today. They're going to talk about data rooms and how they can help your fundraising process. So I'm just going to hand it over to them and let them introduce the topic. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Gennaro. Hello, everyone. So today we'll be covering the following. We'll set the scene on what actually is a virtual data room. We'll be asking what problems a data room solves, what documents you should be sharing in your data room with investors. We'll have a quick 10-minute walkthrough of what a data room looks like, and then we'll be taking questions at the end. So please do share them with Gennaro as and when they spring to mind. So what is a virtual data room? A virtual data room is a secure online repository where confidential documents are stored, shared, and tracked. Historically, data rooms are all physical spaces where essential documents related to a deal were stored in paper form. These physical rooms were typically accessed by lawyers or advisors and often required international travel. Physical rooms require a lot of space, obviously, and therefore are expensive to procure and manage, and are, of course, filled with paper, which is nowhere near as efficient or convenient as a virtual data room, and certainly way less environmentally friendly. Obviously, with the birth and evolution of the internet, this service could, of course, move online. Because of their highly secure nature and ability to be accessed by users in a range of different locations, virtual data rooms are often used to support corporate transactions such as mergers and acquisitions or stock market flotations, which are often referred to as initial public offerings or IPOs for short. The efficiency, intelligence, and security of virtual data rooms also make them the perfect alternative to emailing attachments for founders that are looking to share their key startup documentation during a fundraise. And as we're regularly told by venture capitalists, they much prefer to receive this information in a tidy and organized way and via one channel as opposed to several channels. So it reflects very well on a startup company if a data room is already in place when it begins to engage with its investors. We'll be focusing on using data rooms for fundraising today, but it's worth pointing out that many companies enjoy the benefits of using them on a daily basis and for many other reasons, such as sharing sales proposals, employee contracts, policy documents, or board information, just to name a few. Okay, so turning to you, Graham. Graham's going to take us through the problems that data rooms solve and the documents you should be sharing in them, starting with the first problem, Graham, which is security and the threat of data leaks.
Yes, that's it. Number one, security. And when you go through a fundraise, you're going to need to share a good number of highly confidential documents with your potential investors. And it's certainly not advisable for a number of different reasons, but primarily now for security, to send these attachments via email. You can prevent the recipient from forwarding the information onto other people. Your confidential information is now, sorry, I say you can't prevent it if you don't use a data room and you're using email. Your confidential information is now in the outside world forever. And any mistake in an email address or recipient means the wrong people having your information. There are also security issues around some of the more globally available file sharing and storage sites. As like email, they put you at greater risk of hacks, leaks, and breaches, which will then lead to financial and reputational damage. So a dedicated data room provides a much more secure way of sharing information with investors. You can enforce the signing of an NDA before they access your information. You can also implement two-factor authentication if required. You're sending a link to allow specific investors to log into a secure, centrally stored document area rather than emailing those attachments out. You can control which documents each investor can view, and you can prevent them from printing, saving, or downloading the documents, so they can only ever view them when they come into the data room. If it's appropriate, you can also watermark the background of the document with the investor's name and IP address. The system will do that automatically for you to prevent them from taking screenshots and sharing information in that way. Number two, problem solve is inefficient processes. So a dedicated data room is, in essence, a secure collaboration tool. And without one, you're going to waste a lot of time managing the information that you send to investors and waste a lot of time preparing to send it to them. On top of that, the fundraising process can take 3 to 6 months. And some of your documents are going to need to be regularly updated to ensure that investors are accessing the latest information. And then there's likely to be a lot of questions that the investors are going to ask, all of which will need to be answered and dealt with. If an audit trail of all this activity is needed, without a data room, you'll need to be doing all of that manually. And this can be really time consuming. So in a data room, you're going to be helped to automate a lot of that process. You're only going to need to upload your documents to one central location and then invite different investors to view that information. When you update the documents, say every month, these are instantly available to the investors. You won't need to resend information. So they're always going to have information, access to the latest information. Data rooms also allow investors to ask questions and for you to answer and track responses. And if appropriate, common questions and answers that can be shared with all of the investors can be done perhaps through a frequently asked questions area. And it saves you having to answer the same questions over and over again. The version history of documents and the audit trail of questions and answers and which documents have been read are automatically logged. So in summary, on efficiency, when you're going through a fundraise, rather than getting bogged down in all the admin entailed, a data room is going to help you save a lot of time and allow you to concentrate on something that you've always got to do, whether even when you're fundraising, which is growing and managing your business. So number 3 would be compliance risks. Most VCs, auditors, won't allow an investment in a company that doesn't have a data room, as they need to retain an audit trail of all the information they need to meet their compliance requirements when making an investment. Manually saving audit trails, as I've just said, is extremely inefficient, but it's also open to error, putting your company and potentially investor at risk of regulatory breaches, potential fines, and penalties. So a fully supported data room will accurately automate the audit trail for you. Showing you're a professional company that takes compliance seriously and helps investors demonstrate their own compliance is going to lead to your company being viewed more positively. Moving on to lack of visibility, using different channels, email and ordinary file sharing sites to distribute your documents and to respond to questions is going to be a hindrance to good collaboration with investors. It's going to make it much more difficult for them to easily find all the relevant up-to-date information. And it could end up being a cause of frustration for them. So a dedicated data room will allow all parties to easily search and find the information they need in one place. The numbering of folders and files, which a data room can automate, will also help investors refer to the relevant information if and when asking questions. And then finally, in terms of problems being solved by a data room, it's overcoming missed opportunities for investment. If you're emailing information to investors, you won't know whether or not they're interested in investing unless they come back to you. So a comprehensive data room will allow you to track all of the investors' interactions with your information. You'll be able to see which documents they've read, how often they've read them, and even how long they've spent reading each page. On the one hand, this is going to allow you to concentrate your time and effort following up with interested parties, rather than wasting time chasing up investors that aren't interested. But equally, on the other hand, if you have a preferred investor who hasn't logged in yet or hasn't looked at some particularly important information, you can get in touch to encourage them to do so. Back to you.
Thanks, Graham.
Yep.
Thanks, Graham. Some really good points there. Okay, shall we move on and look at the documents that should be shared during a fundraise by founders, starting with incorporation documents?
Yeah, I'm going to run through some documents that typically we find included in data rooms here. It's just a guide. We're not experts in the content, but I'll give you an idea of what they are. It really depends where an organization, where a company is on its funding continuum. You know, if it's very, very early stage, maybe that a lot of this information isn't required by the investors. But as you go through the corporate journey, more and more information ends up in the data room. So as Dan said, number one, incorporation documents. So these confirm that your entity exists in the right structure, an incorporation, as opposed to, say, a limited partnership. It also shows critical information, such as your trading name, which may be different to your legal name, location, shareholder information, and so on. VCs will tend to carry out checks using Companies House, and the incorporation documents can be a handy source of information for them at the beginning. Next would be the cap table. So a capitalization table that shows the market value of a company. It provides a breakdown of the percentage of ownership, the equity dilution, and the value of equity from each round of investment by founders, investors, and other owners. At the early stage of a company, it's likely that only the founders themselves will appear in the cap table. However, it's always possible that other angels or institutional investors have already given their support. Typically, investors will be looking to see that the equity is split across the founders in a way that incentivizes the right behavior. For example, a non-active founder with a large shareholding could be a bit of a red flag for them. Next up, detailed team bios. Well, you will already have shared a slide about the team in your pitch deck, and the investors may very well have already looked and dug a bit deeper, looking at LinkedIn profiles and so on. So it's always worth making sure that you keep those up to date. But it's still a good idea to include detailed bios in the data room. It gives a bit more color and depth to the experience of the founding team. And by detailing the individual's experience, you're going to reinforce that the team has got the required skills, the network, and the experience to build the venture that you're raising funds for. Next, we draft legal agreement. So in early stage investments, different instruments, could be used by investors. These can range from an actual share purchase agreement equity round to more nuanced types of instrument. And they may have different types of legal agreement. Some VCs will commission an independent legal review of your legal agreement or send their own standard copies. Either way, it helps to have something in your data room that preempts the review process and shows investors that you're ready in certain ways. Relevant market research should be the next one. This is going to help add detail to your business case. So if you can present comprehensive and independent data that demonstrates the market gap that you're plugging and the readiness for a solution, this is going to illustrate to investors the scale and scalability of your opportunity and help persuade them that your startup is the one they should be investing in. The bigger the problem you're solving, the more people money will spend to solve it, and investors will like to see that. A product demo.
Sorry, just on point 5 there, Graham, I think having a good handle on your competition is also a good thing to display to the VCs as well.
Most definitely, yeah. Yeah, the more information I think you can provide them in that sort of area of market research and your understanding of the market, the better. Product demo. Okay, so in early stage pitches, very often there isn't sufficient time to go into a detailed demo of your product or service, but some people understand things better visually. So a demo could go a long way to explaining how your product or service works, maybe perhaps a video or something like that, and the value it provides. Including this in your data room is going to enhance the investor's understanding of the value proposition and the potential value that it offers to other users. It should be said, though, at the pre-seed stage, the very early stage, it's possible that a product still hasn't yet been built. And if this is the case, then some mock-ups or perhaps some process flow charts and things like that that could help explain your solution would be very handy. Partner / customer testimonials. These are independent references demonstrating that you're solving a real problem by confirming that you're building something that customers, partners, customers, people already want and need. And including customer reviews and ratings, general customer feedback, and any other information of this type is a strong way to build credibility and confidence in the value of what you're offering. Employee agreements. These are often required by the auditors of VC funds to show that the founders have signed an employee agreement, that they're very much part of the company that's going to be invested in, and that any IP generated is owned by the company. This ultimately, of course, is what the investors are investing in. So you could also include a founders agreement here. This would show that there's some vesting clause in the agreement that aligns the incentives between the founders and the business. Partnership agreements, letters of interest. This is really about a pipeline, and anything you can do to show a strong pipeline, potential customers, particularly potential large customers for your product, is a good sign that any funding you receive is going to help to unlock that next stage of growth. Partnership agreements, letters of interest, anything showing that you've started commercial agreement discussions, which funding is going to help you fulfill, will be very helpful. And then finally, legal opinions, IP, contracts. Some products tend to be very sensitive from a regulatory standpoint, and it's important that some opinion, an independent opinion from a trusted and relevant professional, demonstrating that all the legal risks associated with the investment have been assessed and mitigated, are going to significantly boost investor confidence and help them to make that investment. So that's on the documents. Dan?
Thanks, Graham. Some really useful tips there. So we're going to move on to a quick 10-minute demo. Here at Perivan, we have our own data room platform called Engage. Let me just share my screen so you can see that. Can you see that, Graham?
Certainly can, yes.
Fabulous. Okay, so I'm logged in as two people here, an administrator or a founder, and then we've got an investor here, which we'll move on to in a moment. So this is the interface. You can upload your files into a nice tidy folder structure. If you've got a predefined folder structure, it's very easy just to dump that into Engage and everything is preserved. No need to manually create these things. We've got a concept of important documents, so you can actually tag important documents and then they're very much front and center on the investor dashboard. That's good if you've got quite a lot of information to share. So rather than dig through the folders and find what they want to get to, you can actually sort of put it front and center for the VCs. There is a very sort of dynamic and robust search engine anyway, so people can get to things very quickly that way. But the important documents works well if you want to really bring the attention to certain documentation. Brown mentioned a product demo. We support pretty much every file type, one of which is video. So if you have got a viable product that you can share and video, you can put files like that in there, MP4s, MP3s, and so on. As the investors start to engage with your information, you will see that activity in what we call the activity report. So once they start opening documents, logging in, asking questions, everything's going to be logged. Everything's reportable. You can export all of this data to Excel and slice and dice it how you see fit. Share it with, bigger bodies like the FCA, for example. But the really neat thing in here is we go to document interactions and we look at an investor's interaction from earlier today. We've got a concept called linger time. So not only do you know what documents investors are interested in, you also know what pages. We mentioned earlier, you can use this for things like sales proposals as well. So if someone's lingering on, your pricing page, that could show buyer intent, and you can pick up the phone and nudge along that interest. Or from a VC point of view, if they're showing interest in this opportunity, you can pick up the phone at that point and nudge along that particular VC to invest. If we switch hats now and see what an end investor would see, they've obviously got a vastly reduced access. Permissions only grant them access to the folders you want them to see. You may want VC Group 1 to see a set of folders and VC Group 2 to see a different set of folders. This particular investor can only see folders 1, 3, 5, 7, and 8. So we've set up a predefined group and we've shown this group just the folders that we want them to see. You might have slightly nuanced pitch decks depending on who you're sending them to. You can easily allow people to see them or not see them as you see fit. So we've got some tagged important documents up here. So I'm going to view that. Print and download are turned off typically for investors. If you want to turn them on, maybe you're getting your lawyers involved in the transaction. Typically they'll be in your circle of trust, as it were. You might want to turn print and download on for them, but as Graham alluded to, you can very much turn that off. Keep them locked inside this secure encrypted bubble for as long as you want. I'm going to view that document as an investor now. And there's the watermark that we mentioned. So that kind of deters people from sharing them. You know, in the unlikely event that that is shared accidentally or maliciously, we know exactly where that comes from. We can trace that back to the user, but also to their geographical location because we've got an IP address on there. I can take a look at this information and I can do one of several things. I can ask a question if I want to dig deeper on that document. Perhaps it's the profit and loss account and I want to interrogate your figures. Or I might be interested in progressing my investment. I can register my interest, or I might want to chat with the founder before I do so. So I can create a callback request. And all the while, this is triggering tasks in the administrative view that the founder will get email notifications letting them know that a question has been asked or interest has been registered or a callback request has been made. And you can set about, if we just switch back to the founder now in the tasks area, here we can set about answering those questions and making sure the investors are happy with our answers. If it's a conversation that we think will benefit everyone, we can add that conversation to the FAQs. These are fairly generic things we're happy to share with a wider audience. Our conversations with that investor have been private up until that point, but now we've placed those FAQs on every investor's dashboard because we think that will help them moving forward. That's pretty much it. Obviously, if you move forward with data room, there is an onboarding process, there is comprehensive training, but it's quite intuitive. A lot of our customers actually just pick it up and run with it without that kind of hand-holding scenario. So yeah.
Thank you so much. That was incredible, very interesting. And I would encourage anyone that has any questions to just turn on their camera and their microphone and to just ask any question, or they can put the questions in the chat box, whatever they feel comfortable doing.
Okay, maybe while we wait for some questions there, Gennaro, I could mention a discount offer we've got to attendees today. So anyone attending today can take advantage of, so typically a fundraise might last 3 months. We've got a one-off ad hoc pricing matrix for a short-term deal. Typically we charge $1,500 for that. We're going to offer that to our attendees today for £1,000 for that approximately 3-month fundraise. Well, there's a good argument to use it in a permanent basis, as we've touched upon. So for a 12-month subscription that would typically be £3,000, we're going to offer it to today's attendees for £2,000. And that is an all-inclusive price. So there's no hidden extras. You don't have to pay more to switch on certain features. That's unlimited users, you know, unlimited data within reason, and so on. So if you want to take advantage of that, do get in touch.
That's great. We have 2 questions in the chat box. Can you see them? Elizabeth is asking, can you share an idea of pricing? And I think you pretty much answered the question now. And then Jasmine is asking, how does Engage Data Room fare better than, for example, Google Docs?
Okay, so we do come up against Google Docs quite often. It's a fairly common thing in the founder community. But what we would say is generic file sharing sites such as Google Docs are exactly that. They're file sharing sites. But a data room is more sophisticated and I would argue looks a bit more professional. From a security standpoint, data rooms by their very nature, they need to be ultra secure. Information is typically encrypted, therefore in transit and at rest, and you won't get that sort of out of the box with typical generic file sharing sites. And generic file sharing sites often want you to pay more, as I've just alluded to switch on certain features like the watermarking, like the insights and the metrics, and for support. If you find a data room that has an all-inclusive price, as we do, then it's going to include absolutely everything, you know, security, 2-factor authentication, unlimited users, unlimited data, full support, and so on.
Okay, thank you so much. Robin is asking, how long does setup take?
Okay, it's very quick. So once we move forward with the customer, we can have your room set up and created literally within sort of 30 minutes. It's a very simple process. We manage that process for you. We'll have a pre-launch call so you can tell us how to configure your site. Once we've trained you and you move forward, you are fully autonomous. You can lean on us. You know, we've got 24/7 support. We can offer you ongoing training, but typically we give you the power to go off and be self-sufficient. You can create your own users. You know, you can reset passwords, you can obviously create permissions and all the rest of it. But important to remember that we are always there if you need to come back to us at any point.
Great. Kate is asking, are the files hosted directly on Engage or via Google Docs? I'm wondering about access control.
Yeah, so it's all purely on Engage. We host this for you. That's part of the service. We host with Microsoft Azure in the UK. So there's absolutely no link to Google Docs whatsoever. If you wanted to move your files out of Google Docs and into Engage, it's a very easy process. As I mentioned at the start, I think you can put your folder structure as it stands from your network, from your Google Docs, from Dropbox, from any of those things, and you can plonk it into Engage as it is, and there's no need to recreate those files and folders.
Yeah, I think it's also worth adding here that, again, if we go back to comparing the data room with things like email, you know, you could ask the question, what happens to your documents after you've raised funds and you've shared the information via email? And the question is, you don't know, because your documents are all out there in the ether. Whereas if you've used a data room, you have that control, as Dan's just explained, about taking all the documents back into your own control, out of the data room, back onto your own systems, and the data room closed down.
Yeah, sorry, Janara, I've just popped in the chat a link, a blog that we actually did comparing data rooms to generic file sharing sites. So go ahead and check that out. I think it's quite a good blog to explain that.
Thank you so much. Kate is also wondering what happens to your files after your subscription ends.
Yeah, good question. So what we allow you to do, you have the ability throughout the lifetime of your subscription to download your data at any point to a local drive, should you wish to. And you can give permission to others to do that, should you wish to as well. Once a subscription ends, we give you sort of a period, a month period to do that. Once you're happy, we kill the data room, we kill the site, and we basically scrub the server of all of your data. So within, I think, 90 days, all the backups, everything like that is completely scrubbed. So yeah, we don't hold on to your data, but you have the opportunity to download it.
Thank you. Another message, another question, how else can you use the data room besides, for example, the fundraising process or M&A activities?
Yeah, so M&As and IPOs was where we kind of started with this. Obviously now you can use it for things like human resources, you know, onboarding staff, onboarding customers. Sales proposals is a big one. So founders that use it for fundraisers also love to use it for winning clients, you know, and they get to know if the clients are actually interested in that proposal, and particularly the pricing page, which shows a bit of buyer intent. Any secure file sharing requirement you've got on a daily basis, you know, whether you're fundraising or not, it can be used for all of the above.
Okay, that's great. Any other questions? You can
just while we're waiting for that, Gennaro, I just thought I'd share with the audience our contact details, just in case they do want to learn a bit more, take advantage of that discount we're offering. You can reach us on engage@perivan.com if you'd like to learn more or you'd like to arrange a demo.
That's great. Thank you so much. I also shared a few links in the chat. One is an MPS form that we share to collect your thoughts and your feedback on the Lunch and Learn. And also I shared my email. So if anyone in the audience would like to host a Lunch and Learn with us, we're very happy to let you host one. So you just reach out to me and we can organize that. So if there's not any more questions, I'll just thank you for joining. And I'll share the recording with the rest of our members as well. And we hope this was helpful for all of you. And thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks
for arranging it, Gennaro.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, Gennaro. See you soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.